We're recording.
You got her.
All right, I'll call the November 25th, 2025 meeting of the Planning Commission to order. The first item on the agenda is the roll call. Would you call the roll, Ms. Ramble?
Jake Castile. Jim Jackson.
Here.
Pete McGorry. David Miller.
Here.
Steve Pajali.
Here.
Connor Whalen.
Here.
Mike Zuloff.
Here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Jackson's absence from the last meeting due to extenuating circumstances.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and I believe Miss Castillo called in and said she may not be able to make the meeting.
Motion to excuse, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion passes. And Mr. McGorry, did he happen to call in?
I did not receive anything.
I also did not.
Okay, if we didn't get a call, then I guess we'll have to mark him as unexcused. All right, our next item is approval of minutes from the October 22nd, 2025 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it might be prudent to add an update to those minutes to mark Mr. Jackson excused, since you all just voted for that
Okay.
in the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes with that amendment.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Okay, the next item is a public hearing on a zone map amendment for 223 through 225 Meg Street. And the way I'm going to handle this is the staff can give their report, and then if the applicant wants to come up and speak and fill in any gaps or say anything, and then we'll go to the public hearing. Those in favor, those against.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. So on this slide, we see both 223, 225 Meg Street. It is currently one property, yet it is split zoned, which is what the applicant is hoping to remedy with this application. On the right-hand side, you can see that whole property, and we'll get into the exact portion that triggered this and why. For now, though, starting from a top-down perspective, the south working north, on the left part of this slide is the existing parking lot, and then on the right side is 225 Meg Street, home to McGookie Law. And then on this slide is the proposed area for rezoning, which is behind the existing Tap House building. So the applicant would like to rezone the newly combined portion of property to align with the primary zoning of the site of downtown business and enable future development, which is in line with the site plan approved by this Planning Commission on January 5th, 2023. On the left-hand side, you can see that proposed area recently combined and approved by staff. It is permitted to create split zone properties, just they couldn't proceed with any potential building with this, and we'll get into the exact scope they are at with that in a moment. Okay. So just for reference, here's the site plan approved January 2023 showing the proposed brewery expansion area. It just shows that general vicinity, which I highlighted in yellow, no firm building footprint. So this is all very general, but it needs to be zoned right before they can proceed with that. And just as a factual matter, the below map indicates the minimum required setback distances for any proposed development if it were rezoned to downtown business relative to that lot area triggering the application for rezoning. So this should act as a buffer to the adjacent properties. And I can revisit any of that. I know that's a lot of information. Staff analysis, this application aims to make the entire property the same zoning district of downtown business to allow for orderly future development. Two, the buildable area of any new building will be limited by the minimum required setbacks for main buildings, which are adjacent to residential zoning districts. Those minimum required setbacks will act as a buffer between adjacent residential uses, thereby protecting their quality of life, while also allowing the applicant to take sufficient advantage of the land they own for economic gain. Ultimately, the benefit realized from this rezoning of this smaller and landlocked portion of property will be greater than leaving it the same until a plan fully materializes and all other code requirements would be met by this proposed rezoning. Therefore, staff recommends, Planning Commission motion to recommend City Commission approve the proposed zoning map amendment. And as a note, if recommended for approval, staff intends to ask City Commission to set the hearing at the first meeting of the new year to be held in February. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panis. Mr. McGookie, was there anything you wanted to add to the report?
I had questions about the report, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I thought maybe Mr. McGookie could speak, and then
Okay.
we'll eventually get back.
We-
I really didn't have anything to add other than I don't get down here too much anymore, and I want to thank you all for everything you've done for us. Now, this is just another little step along the way of building out the Bait House Brewery. Next year, or this winter actually, we're going to be moving forward and getting the proper permits to finally attack the bait shop. Herb's Bait Shop, is most of us that are old enough to recall Herb's. And we're going to build that out, and we're going to do some really cool things with that. But other than that, we don't know on this particular lot. You know, my wife, Bev, who's the brains of the operation, she wants to turn it into a garden where we'll grow some vegetables and for service or use in the brewery restaurant. But other than that, I think everything's pretty well summed up.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. McGookie? Yeah, will you be leaving the minnows in there, where the water feature with the minnows that they used to have?
Oh, yeah, well,
You can
that's
hear the
behind.
running water?
We have the tanks that are still there. I don't know if that's, Steve, if that's what you're referring to, but I think those are finally going to come out in the garage. I think we're going to clean up that whole backyard, and it's high time that we did that, and, just really cleaned it up. And by this time, well, by more like by April, I'm going to say, of next year, it's going to be a totally different look. And so when we submitted this application, by the way, I don't know if this was in any of your documents, but we thought we would be adding another building to put on this property, on this little lot here, to house our brew. We were going to call it our brew house, but we're kind of backing away from that, and for now, and focusing on the old bait shop, like I said. So this property, this little sliver of land, kind of remains open, and what we're going to do with it in the long run remains to be determined. But while the application was filed, when we filed this application, we thought we'd build a new brew house on this property, and we've kind of backed off of that. But since we filed it, I'm here, and we're going to use it, I mean, in one way or another in connection with the brewery. So it just needs to be rezoned.
Okay,
So
thank you.
unless there's some questions, that's all
I
I've
don't
got
think
to
there's
say.
any questions around the table at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So I'll open the public hearing,
Mr. Chairman, I still have a question about the
but,
the application.
I'm going to open the public hearing, and then I'm going to come
Okay,
back to
thank
the
you.
table and we'll discuss.
Okay.
Don't forget your question. All right, I'm opening the public hearing Anyone in favor of this application? You're free to come up and speak. Anyone opposed? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Zuloff, you're on.
I forgot. No, just kidding. All right, downtown business, how will this affect the parking requirements on this site?
The majority of the land uses that are on the site today, actually, all the land uses that are on the site today are already zoned downtown business. So it
Wait a minute,
should,
you-
it
you
won't.
just- No, I'm sorry, you just said the land uses are zoned, land is zoned.
Yeah, so Adam, could you click us to the slide that shows the proposed? Yes, if you look on the left picture of this, there's a small portion of land area that's getting rezoned. That used to be parts of other parcels that got combined into this parcel.
Yeah, that much I
It's
get.
all, it doesn't have any buildings on it at this point. So it would change, anything that gets built there, the parking requirements would be for the land use that they would get built for, which would be brewery. So expansion of the brewery is when we would, expansion of the like permanent structures on the site is when we would look at parking requirements.
Right.
So it would change it from an R2F kind of little micro zone to the downtown business for the parcel.
Right, so to paraphrase, let's get to answering my question. How will this affect the parking? Are we saying that it would not, would reduce,
I can answer.
increase the required parking, reduce the required parking, or have no effect on the required parking?
The direct answer is we don't know yet because this is not the process that would become obvious. Just because, like, there's no direct correlation or ratio of land zone downtown business equals minimum required parking. It's
Well, there's no
all according
required
to the
parking for
land.
downtown business, correct?
It's in the central business district.
Oh,
There's not.
okay.
So when you go back to the land use in the form of a future site plan review application, which this isn't, that Mr. McGookie would bring forward in the future, that's when we would look at, okay, what, does the existing site have enough parking? Does it not? What's the circulation like? And that would start principally with, I think it's 114905, the schedule for minimum required parking.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because,
Generally,
you know,
no change.
Parking often
Yeah.
becomes, you know, a problem and a complaint and conflicts with neighbors,
Yeah.
and it wasn't really discussed in the report. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zuloff. Any other questions from around the table?
So these are, am I correct?
Mr.
It's just,
Whalen.
it's odd that it's zoned differently than the others, but it's because they are already joined together, one parcel, all of this inside of the yellow is one parcel right now.
Yeah, so that,
Right now,
the
it's one.
conversation in 2023 was, we'd like to expand our parcel, and by then, what we would do is cut off some other parcels, and that site plan was approved, and so they followed through with that. They cut a couple other parcels that they own, and then combined the pieces into this. So they used to be part of the Washington Street facing parcels, and now they're part of the Make Street facing parcel. So it's kind of cleaning up that process. It's like the last step from that process.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion from the table?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I would just say that I think this is a great project. I've always liked your operation down there. I think it took courage to go down there and do that type of a project, you know, because you're kind of away. Maybe if Maroos comes in, you'll have the traffic flow back down. I always thought that the old Herbs, just turning that into a bar would be great. You know, you'd have like the Swabbies, like Mr. Zuloff from the Sailing Club, stumble up, and maybe Mr. Miller. Be perfect, a little neighborhood bar, but you've done a great job expanding that whole concept, so. I'll call the roll. Will you call the roll, Ms. Rambo?
Mike Zuloff,
Yes.
Jim Jackson,
Yes.
Connor Whalen,
Yes.
David Miller,
Yes.
Steve Pajali.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, we will go into the next item, the proposed text amendment. And Ms. Blair has handed out another piece of paper, so another narrative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll mention that in this conversation. So tonight, we are holding a public hearing for a proposed text amendment to Title III, which is in our residential district in our accessory uses, to clarify the transient occupancy overlay district language and clarify when applications, well, we said clarify a lot, the factors for creating a new district. So for a little bit of background, I want to set a broader context than just the memo that you have in your packet. Our transient rental occupancy definition was created in 2017, so that ordinance created the concept of the occupancy overlay district and how it was approved and how to create a new one, identifying where those were permitted. In 2018, the city went through a process to identify what we call the Cove District as meeting those definitions, which is in the code to be close to amenities and be in a declining area, et cetera. And the Cove was determined to be an appropriate place for that to be done. It was specified by the community as an area in need of economic improvement and targeted for the transient as an appropriate land use. And we think that's been successful. We've seen a lot of increased market potential in that area, and it's been very well utilized by the property owners and residents and visitors of the area. From 2018 then to 2023, the city continued to receive requests to expand the Cove District, and we also received requests to create new districts. All of you were planning commissioners throughout this time, but we thought it was important context. And throughout those conversations, the code lacking a definition for what is a declining geographic area was a sticking point in staff evaluation in those conversations. So we did get requests to expand the Cove District, and those were processed by staff as rezonings, and that continued to grow that original Cove District outside of the bounds of what it was originally created for and expanded that overlay district. And then we also got property owner requests for new overlay districts in other areas. That led to lengthy public discussions. We had several public meetings. We had public hearings. We had a lot of neighbor concerns, phone calls, and confusion about the process, both at the Planning Commission table and with the community. So then that kind of led to, since we were having so many public discussions about transient rental, the city commission at that point said, okay, we need to put a pause on this. And so we have some time and some space to talk about our legislation, our regulation of transient rental. And they have passed and have extended a moratorium on any kind of zoning changes for the creation of new eligible transient rental properties. At the same time, I've been mentioning mostly the overlay district. We also had a series of rezoning applications for individual properties wanting new zoning just to enable the ability to do transient rental on those properties, which was a concern for neighborhood changes because of zoning changes across the city. So this time frame in the moratorium gave us some time to research and strategize. We had some small group discussions with members of the Planning Commission, leadership, City Commission, and set out kind of a strategy to what to do. And what has led us to is kind of a two-pronged approach. One is a policy direction, which was issued by the city manager to the planning and zoning staff to direct us to process the specific requests differently than how we've been doing. So the policy direction that has been issued from the city manager to the planning division is when we get individual parcel requests, so somebody owns a parcel that's not eligible for transient rental and they want to request its eligibility, that we should direct that as a use variance application rather than them seeking a rezoning, which changes a whole lot of the land use that they could do with the property, right? That they should be, this is a very specific land use request to conduct a specific land use on a specific parcel, that is more appropriate for a use variance application process, which also has very specific standards for the Board of Zoning Appeals to evaluate those requests. And they can set conditions on requests. So if they do approve them, they can set conditions. It puts the onus on the property owner to prove that they have an undue hardship to ask for that land use. And it's, in general, like I've mentioned, the policy direction is that it's more appropriate for us to be processing those applications in that directions. The expected outcome from that is that the size and the shape of that existing cove district as it is today will remain unchanged, because we won't be seeking, we wouldn't process a request to expand it in the same way if somebody was next to it and they had a request, we would put them in the Board of Zoning Appeals process. And then property owners citywide have a clear path for how to apply for that and how to request that. That was one of the big leading frustrations from previous owners and the other conversations we had about new transient rental overlay districts. Is it appropriate? If you recall, how many parcels, all of those kind of spinning conversations we have, now we have a clear path if somebody calls us and wants that path forward. At the same time, this kind of other prong approach is to look at a refinement of our code language to clarify what is a declining area. So currently, like I mentioned, our code says it's appropriate to create transient rental occupancy overlay district in an area that's in a declining geographic area, which doesn't have a clear definition. And this would define that as an area defined in our comprehensive plan or similarly formally adopted planning document of the city. So if we go through a neighborhood planning process, comprehensive planning process, and residents are telling us and stakeholders are telling us, this area is declining, we need to address that. We think transient rental occupancy overlay district is a good idea for this, whatever geographic area that is. And then we get through a formal adoption process that's adopted by City Commission. We have that planning document that points to it. That's when initiating a new overlay district would be appropriate. So that is the change, and thank you. That is the change that we have brought to the table today. So this very specific item on the slide today that's in red is the change that we brought forward for the public hearing. And it looked like Mr. Jackson had a question.
Mr. Jackson?
Yeah. The question I have is that who's going to determine where these areas are going to be? Is it going to be the citizens that are going to have to come to you and say, this is a declining area? Or are you going to be looking for areas that are declining?
So it would be, if this is passed, it would be when we do a neighborhood planning process, like we most recently did the South Side Plan. Before that, there was the Downtown Plan. Before that, there was the Sandusky Neighborhood Initiative. Before that, there was a comprehensive plan. So if we're in a formal planning process where we're creating some kind of planning document, if the conversations lead to that, saying this specific area, transient rental would be a good idea for that, and then City Commission adopts that, that's when we would have the language to move forward with a new district. So we're not going to go out looking for them. It just gives more formal process to creating them and identifying when they're appropriate and valuable for the city.
But just for clarification, now that would just be for the overlay district?
Just for the creation of a new
Overlay district.
Correct.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Other than
one?
that, you would use a use variance if it was warranted in that specific area.
Correct.
Mr. Williams?
Relative to this part of the discussion, as of right now, do I understand correctly, City Commission or Planning Commission members may initiate an overlay district?
Yes.
With this, we still could initiate
Correct.
an overlay district. It would just be subject to the comprehensive plan, which is that text in here anywhere? I'm getting sidetracked, I'm sorry. But is that the text of the comprehensive plan in here somewhere that I missed?
So if it's in red on the slide right here, and I'm looking in the pack to see, it's on page,
It's on the second sheet.
I guess my question relative to what we were talking about, I don't want to get lost.
Where on the comp plan?
So when Magookie, that was just here, we extended this overlay district for him down Washington Street. Was that us initiating a new or expanding a district?
that was staff processing a request as a rezoning. So they said, hey, we have these 3 parcels, we want to do transient rental. Staff was like, okay, the most appropriate thing to do is to rezone that into the overlay district. And what we're hearing now from leadership is that is not the approach we're going to use
So
moving forward.
we could put up I happen to know a property owner who bought in 2003 with intentions across the street there. And I certainly would, if he asked, say, come to the commission to expand 3 parcels on contingent to these parcels. And
So
so I guess I don't see how this would stop that necessarily. It would just be a new overlay contingent to the one beside.
if in a formal planning process, that area was defined as declining and appropriate for a transient rental overlay, then we would have a documented reason to say that it's appropriate to expand the district or create a new district. But the
But that,
previous,
okay.
the
so you're
previous
saying
applications
previous
were processed
applications
as
were-
rezonings. And what we're saying is now is we're not going to process requests for transient rental as rezoning. That anyone that has to say, I have a house and I think this is what I want to do with it, that they would file a use variance application with the Board of Zoning Appeals. No matter if they're right next to the existing overlay or 10 streets over.
Well, I see some injustice and issue. I have a little issue with that, but I guess I understand we can't direct policy on a specific place. But if we've expanded a district in the past, I guess I see what you're saying. But truly, in effect, we changed the overlay district in the past.
That was the habit of receiving those requests as rezonings was set by the previous leader of planning and zoning, and that was something that, when I came into leadership of planning and zoning, I followed what past practice has been. And certainly, there's a lot of times that we have a habit of doing something in the city that we then look at a different lens and say, you know what, actually, we should do this way. It would be more legally defensible, or it would be lead to a better outcome for the public welfare, or et cetera. We have received direction from the city manager's office to process requests as use variances. So that is something we will follow and is outside of the description of the code. It's just context to the conversation, if that makes sense.
Mr. Panis?
Mr. Chair, yes, just for additional context for Mr. Whalen or anyone else wondering, although, like Aaron said, this is context, valuable context, this just happens to be codified, so to speak, or written down, this policy direction. Prior to the 2018 creation of the Cove District, all these applications were being processed through the use variance application anyway. So we're returning to what was over the large amount of time, the passage of time, the de facto practice. We're just now we have a city manager memorandum to solidify that as the direction. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Zuloff.
so you're going to get a little bit of institutional memory here because I was there for the original ordinance, I think.
Revisionist history, perhaps?
No. Well, would you like revisions? No, I have no intention of lying about it. No, the intent was that, first of all, I think, speaking for myself, the fear was that we'd get applications willy-nilly, and everybody who thought they could make a buck would want to put a verbo in, in the house next door or whatever, and the heck with how the neighbors felt about it. Yet we recognized that there were places where it would do way more good than harm. We already had someone who was, we already had cases where it was happening technically illegally with strong support from the neighbors. And that would be the exception. I don't think you'd find that everywhere, but in this particular case, it was the Cove District and it had strong support and it was really working. So in my mind, the intent was, these are good experiences for visitors to Sandusky. They help the neighborhood do more good than harm. And the neighborhood, benefits from it. So, and that's part of the reason why we were specific about originating at Planning Commission or City Commission, and not simply just opening the floodgates. And so I think Ms. Blair is correct in that maybe in our inexperience with these matters, we weren't following the best possible policy within the department, and I think we've learned from that. We simply, when someone wants to apply inappropriately, it would have been better to just say no. We're not doing that, and there are alternatives and ways that a citizen can take it further or petition the city commission or whatever and try to do it anyway. But we even had cases of individual outlying lots. Someone wanted to just do their house in the middle of a neighborhood. And of course, they found a neighbor who, dragged in a neighbor, and the neighbor said, oh yeah, it's fine with me. We had a case where an applicant, an investor didn't even live in the city, I don't think, kind of exaggerated the support the neighbors had for his proposed district, and then we wound up with a room full of opponents in that neighborhood. So, we have a situation where we don't want to be displacing our own residents and have our property snapped up by investors and competing with our hotels, right? So the overlay district was a great solution. I think it was a well-written ordinance. I think this clarification helps a little. I don't think we should get too personal. I think we have to be careful about being too inflexible about it. There are one or two places where I would like to eventually propose, I think. Didn't do it because we had the moratorium. One of the discussions was, as Mr. Whalen pointed out, someone's across the street from a district. A prior discussion had to do with where should the dividing line be, and I pointed out that the district being a street isn't the most rational way to do it. If you go down a street, why not both sides of the street, right? So that in most cases, I felt the dividing line, should be between the streets, right? So that both sides of the street would. I don't know if you remember the conversation.
I remember one across from Cardinal.
Well, I didn't get the support I hoped from you when I brought that point up, but maybe now you have a different viewpoint, and we all evolve.
I don't recall opposing to
Well, okay, but in any event, there may be cases where it makes sense to add to the district, and we just have to be maybe a little hard-nosed about it, and not let it happen lightly, or not let it be proposed lightly. So this is a good thing. I'm not sure about this policy. Hopefully the policy statement regarding property owners' proposals doesn't open the floodgates or doesn't imply that we're inviting that, because in most cases, in a typical neighborhood, in a typical stable neighborhood, it's not a good idea, and I don't think it's a good policy for any number of reasons, and I hope we don't go down that road.
Thank you, Mr. Zuloff. Any other comments? If not, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone that is in favor of changing this text, this text amendment. If you're in favor, come up and state your name, and if not, I'll take those against next.
Lisa Mazuka, 814 Bardshar Road. I came up in favor because it seems like a positive move forward from the moratorium, which was a temporary situation. And I think I really appreciate Ms. Blair's comment about the community welfare and considering that. My first thoughts on transient rentals, short-term rentals in the city came probably about 5 years ago when I first witnessed listing sheets from realtors that would list the current metro rate for a house, what the landlords were receiving from Metro, and then it would say it's zoned for, which its zoning would allow for Airbnb or short-term rental. So to me, it was an obvious indication at that point in time that there were residents being displaced. Secondly, I had relatives that were moved out of their residence to allow for that use. I think that it's very important what you do here in regards to the welfare of the community, because it's not just the investment in the housing stock that's important, it's also the investment in the people who live here. And I think when we only look at, well, that house looks better than it used to, you're not taking the whole picture. I listened to the commission meeting, this most recent one, where the Western Reserve Land Conservancy spoke about the improvements made in our community from 2015 to 2025, and that's great. I think it's lovely to see all the beautiful houses and improvements. But I don't think that there was a whole lot of foresight in prioritizing that investment in the community over top of the community that exists in Sandusky, existed at the time. It's not just the transient rental overlay districts where this is allowed, it's also in RRB, which is scattered throughout the city. And as I watched the planning meetings where property owners wanted to change their zoning, it was often because, well, we're right next to RRB or we're right next to commercial. And a lot of people don't even bother to register their Airbnb or their transient rental with the city. It's not really the investor's job, it maybe is if they are concerned about how to invest ethically, but it is incumbent upon the city and the policies that they make in order to regulate for the common welfare of the community. The Firelands Forward study that was published in 2023 showed that 2021 statistics, Erie County had 8.1% of its total housing stock being used as vacation rentals. And this was an increase of 23% from 2021, and from 2011. And since 2021, I've only seen that number increase more. And as awesome as it is that we're subsidizing and helping build new housing within the city, it's just not keeping up with the rate that they're being absorbed by vacation rentals. In an ideal situation, the supply and demand would just balance itself by the market conditions naturally, but with housing, you're talking about a finite resource, and it's necessary for survival. And we have a community that a fifth of it, over a fifth of it, lives under federal poverty guidelines. And this meeting isn't crowded tonight because a lot of the people this affects the most work 2 jobs, you know? So I believe in the Firelands Forward study, there were a couple of suggestions, and this is beyond the scope of this change, but there were suggestions for communities that have these issues. Examples were given like Park Township, Michigan, and Steamboat Springs, Colorado, where they saw these changes happening and considered the welfare of their community. So I think that there are things that can be further looked at. I think addressing this as the city has decided to do through the manager and through Aaron, I think that this is a good step, a positive step in the right direction. And I echo Mr. Zuloff's comments that I just hope it doesn't open the floodgates, you know, that it's not, okay, so all I need is a variance now. I've been wanting to do this for so many years because there's been this moratorium and now I have my opportunity. And please don't see it when those cases come, please don't see it like we have to be somehow just fair because other people did it. You know, it's a welfare of the community issue. So I appreciate your time and thank you for your work on this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Mazuka. Anybody else that would like to speak in favor? Is there anybody that would like to speak against? Could you come up here and state your name and address for the record?
Hi, my name is Charles Wenger. I live at 722 Garfield Avenue in the Cove District, and since I've moved up from Columbus 4 years ago, I've had on my street 5 VRBOs, or short-term rentals, move in. And my concern is some of these rentals have a large number of beds available. There's 2 of them that they're single-family homes, but they're advertising 14 beds apiece. And it just seems unless they come in microbuses, they're going to be parking all over the place. And there's only 2 driveways on the whole street that I live on. So I'm concerned that if this VRBO short-term rental keeps on going, that we won't, it'll eat up the neighborhood and it'll drive out all the families. I keep hoping that when I see a new house for sale that it's going to go to a young startup family, but every time I'm seeing it, it seems to go to an out-of-state investor. And I'm just hoping that we can have a little bit of control on it to make sure that we don't just saturate the area. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we will come back to the table. Mr. Zuloff?
Yeah, I appreciate the gentleman's concern about 14 beds in a modestly sized single family is inappropriate. I don't think that would conform. We have some standards and we have some health and safety issues, and these are all supposed to be licensed and inspected. And so I'd say if you think something inappropriate is happening, you might want to contact City Hall. And this is one of the concerns. In your neighborhood, how many years have you been there, sir?
I've been there. I came up from Columbus 4 years ago.
Right. Well, if you go back 10 or 15 years, you'd be stunned at how much better the neighborhood is. Because houses were falling apart, they were being condemned, they were being demoed, there were all kinds of issues. And so you've probably met some of your neighbors and probably know that at least, it's never going to be universal or unanimous, but there was a lot of support for the district in that neighborhood, right? And it's completely opposite from, we have many stable neighborhoods where they don't want it, I don't want it, I don't think it's a good idea. It was already happening there. We tried it. It kind of worked. Should we have expanded it as much as we did? I don't know. I'm not sure. The other thing that was happening at the time was we didn't have an ordinance, and we were getting complaints from everywhere, in particular Cedar Point Road, where inappropriate rentals were happening, and the neighbors were being awakened at 3 o'clock in the morning, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So people say, why can't I use my house the way I want? Property rights, it's my house, how come I can't rent it? Overlooking the insult to the neighbor's property rights when you allow incompatible uses. This is the reason why the Supreme Court a long time ago said, yeah, no, zoning is perfectly constitutional because your neighbors have rights to peaceful enjoyment of their property too, and that's I think takes priority. You don't get to do anything you want and ignore your neighbor's rights. So if we're seeing a problem in your neighborhood, we need to know about it.
Any other comments from the table? Mr. Miller?
Only slightly reluctant. It occurs to me that consequences intended or unintended, there was sort of a general assertion that throughout the city there are numerous properties that are being used for short-term rentals that are not permitted. And it seems like this change would potentially offer an avenue for somebody who's not operating legally now to, if they're discovered, either go to BZA and go legit, or go to BZA and get shut down. And I think that speaks to the concern of some that it's more than just fixing up a house. It's about the quality of the neighborhood and having places for people to live. But just in my neighborhood, the Didge, there's numerous of houses that we who live there have identified as, we believe that's a vacation rental. We see what goes on as we go back and forth in our daily lives. And some of these houses have been substantially improved, new foundations and, general, you have to bring it up to a certain standard to be able to rent it, but the parking and the traffic, if there is no way to deal with what is really happening out there, this provides an opportunity to at least answer the question, is this acceptable in this location for this house or not?
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I
would
Go
like
ahead,
to
and then I'm gonna
first
speak.
apologize.
And then I'm gonna speak, and then we're-
Apologize
and then I'm
for
gonna
kind of drawing us sideways. I feel like we've talked a lot about this and not any about
Well, I'm
these red words. So on the red words, on the page that we're talking about possibly adding, I don't really see a lot of benefit from them. It seems like action that does not create much consequence. It slightly better defines what declining geographic area means. I know that I don't have the words in front of me. I did expect to see them here, so I did not go read them all. That's my bad. But the comprehensive plan, I assume, a little better defines what the geographic area is, and that's really all that's happening here is where this board is being given slight more guidance on what can be recommended and what cannot, and ultimately, the comprehensive plan will need to be interpreted as well. So it really seems kind of inconsequential to me, but I'll vote no, but I just wanted to say that, and I'm done.
Mr. Whalen. Do you have any clarification on that?
I'll say from an overall perspective, this is a use that's in high demand, and we get a lot of phone calls about it. And when the moratorium lifts, we will get people asking us for districts, for individual properties, we will have to process these somehow. And I think that the clarification here is really valuable because the comprehensive plan or another formally adopted planning process is a public process. So there's always public engagement. There's opportunities for neighbors to be involved. We actively reach out to neighbors to have a conversation with them. What does your neighborhood need? What does the future of your neighborhood look like? And that process is usually months and months of outreach and analysis and a document that is reviewed both by Planning Commission and also City Commission. So I think that it puts a lot more of an arduous process on when it's appropriate for staff to say, yes, this makes sense, or to recommend this, or for Planning Commission to recommend it. I think it actually gives quite a bit of definition here. And otherwise, declining, I mean, Sandusky's been losing population for a couple generations. Is that what declining means? And, you know, like, how do you define declining was where we always ended up at a sticking point in the handful of, you know, petitions, neighbor petitions for
And then
overlay
we
districts.
ultimately voted.
So I think it'll be really helpful, and even though it's just one simple sentence, it actually is probably adding like months of time and multiple instances of neighbor engagement to ask neighbors to say, this is what we want in our neighborhood,
Yeah.
or neighbors to say, this is not what we want in our neighborhood.
So, thank you, Ms. Blair. So I'll give you my revisionist history on this whole overlay thing. And this gentleman makes a good point. I think it shows that the overlay district is fraught with different problems. And I think that when we would consider an overlay district, what people would bring in a bunch of signatures. We didn't know if they were rental people. We didn't know if they were property owners. They just bring in an application for an overlay district, and I don't think we were very diligent at looking at the criteria to allow it. And it just seems to me, my feeling is, we don't want the entire city to be covered with overlay districts.
I
And
agree. I think we've
let me
rightly
finish.
we've
And I
rightly
think
slowed down.
before, I think my intent was to make sure that that didn't happen. Now, we got 6 zones that allow it. We got 6 zones, right?
Correct.
And to me, this would put a check and balance in place, Ms. Bazooka, where we would consider each thing on a case-by-case basis. Who's to say that your friend that has the 3 houses, why can't they come in on a case-by-case basis, and then we
Yeah, no, I agree.
The Board of Zoning Appeal make a decision.
But all this is that we aren't voting on this. We're talking about this. Should we change it to these words?
Well, I think we're voting on both.
What is?
Well, it's,
Do we have a say on this?
Well, I mean,
I don't think we
that would
do.
kick in the variance.
you ready for a motion?
And anyhow, yeah, that's just,
Can I see at least the definition in the comprehensive plan? I guess I maybe understood this.
And
So-
I
How
will
does-
say, just let me finish my statement. I will say that this may all be a moot point, because the General Assembly is on fire about deregulating any sort of transient housing regulations. So it could come in the very near future where we don't even have a say in it. So it may be wise.
I'm not against checking, and I just,
Okay, go ahead.
no, I'm
Well,
sorry to
could I-
interrupt you. I'm not against checking.
No,
it.
no,
I think- I
we're
wanna make
going to
sure-
answer Mr. Whalen's question.
I just want to see how the comprehensive plan defines
That's a great question.
the structure.
So the
what we're voting.
our existing comprehensive plan in the city of Sandusky does not define declining geographic area. It does not point to any areas of the city as appropriate places to put a new transient rental overlay district. So we would have to create a new plan, an updated
Okay.
comprehensive plan, a new neighborhood
Okay,
plan.
so this
There's
is what I missed.
there's no planning document on record currently that points to an area that says this is a good place, except for when the Cove District was defined and created. That, it's already done.
But we do have distressed areas, federally distressed areas. Close enough,
There
right?
there's no adopted planning document on record that says a new transient rental overlay district would be appropriate here. And that's what staff is recommending that we change the code to say needs to happen. So it would be a future planning document. If in a future planning document that was defined and and adopted,
I wanna make a motion.
then a new overlay district would be appropriate.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Rambo, go ahead, Mr. Zuloff.
you're going to love this. I'd like to make the motion that we recommend for this zoning change. And in addition, that we change the ordinance, our zoning code, to not permit variances that would allow transient rental.
Is there a second?
I think Mr. Jackson had a point.
Let's talk about it.
Is there a second? Motion dies.
Okay.
Is there another motion?
What do you think?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I move approval of the recommended language change.
Is there a second?
Can I get one more question before we second?
Well,
No.
you can second and we can discuss, I guess.
I'll second it.
It's been second in discussion.
Does this board have any abilities to initiate a comprehensive plan or a similar document?
I don't think so. That would have to come
Sure
through
we
the, I mean, I guess we could make a recommendation, but,
So it's just changing it to where it has to come from
Mr.
it
Chairman.
has to come from a detailed city plan. I get
I
what
have
it is.
I-
What it
I
is.
have a-
wait, Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, you said that once, if this is approved, then you will come up with guidelines that determine what a declining area in Sandusky is? Is that what you said, or you didn't say that?
No, it would be if that organically came out of a planning process. So if we were going to do a neighborhood plan or another downtown plan or an update to the comprehensive plan, if people are asking for it and that moves through a formally adopted process, like an update to our comprehensive plan.
But just for clarification, if somebody comes in with a use variance, there would be a list of criteria, right?
Right, that's a totally different thing. So if somebody's pursuing a use variance, there is a very strict and specific list of points that they have to make a point to argue. That's
Mr.
different from the overlay district
Mr. Chairman.
conversation.
Are you done, Ms. Blair? Are you done, Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr.
So,
Zuloff?
yeah, there's this very specific criteria for approving a variance, which gets ignored all the time. And with the district process, at least you have less legislation, you have public hearings, it either originates at the planning, city commission and comes back here for a recommendation, or we make a recommendation. And there's public hearings and a process. A variance kind of greases the skids. And so I think this could have the opposite effect if we have a routine policy of simply making a variance application for transient rental. We're greasing the skids here. I would much rather see legislation to prohibit granting transient rental via the variance process. It's an easier process. It's going to promote it rather than inhibit inappropriate applications.
Thank you, Mr. Zuloff.
One last one. I am
This is
voting.
the last.
Yep, I am voting no, but it is not because I want to expand the zone to my buddies. I do think we've rightly slowed the transient, but I also think that a board of citizens that we are is capable of being responsible with this, and I think we have done a pretty decent job of that over the years. And so just taking it and making it staff making the decision and not us, I'm voting against that, but
Okay, Ms. Ramble, would you please call the roll?
Steve Pajali.
Yes.
David Miller.
Yes.
Connor Whalen.
No.
Jim Jackson.
Yes.
Mike Zuloff.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay, moving into new business. Site plan review for 706 Lane Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for everyone's patience. So this was an application for site plan approval by 706 Lane Street Realty, also known as Luco. On the left-hand side of this slide is the zoning map, which another split zone property, but not to worry. The portion in question where this building addition is located in the GM General Manufacturing portion. And you can see the entire property outlined in yellow on the right. Moving on. Here is an elevation I took a couple months ago from Lane Street when it was still sunny and not battleship gray. Here's an elevation from 3rd Street with an arrow pointing to the general area of work that we will expect the building addition to go up. And then on the opposite side, looking from 1st Street, the more narrow portion. So here's the proposed site plan. You can also found it in your packets. The scope of work, Luco is proposing a 44,250 square foot addition to their existing facility at 706 Lane Street. Per the applicant in their paperwork, this addition is critical to the current customer's demand to fabricate industrial ovens larger than their existing facility will allow. It is also anticipated that this addition will add 40 to 50 jobs over the next 5 years. Excuse me. If you look at the site layout plan on the left-hand part of the slide, you can see the crosshatch area, the rectangle. On the right, to orient ourselves, the right-hand side is 3rd Street, left is 1st Street, and left is north. Okay. So the portion outlined in black is the new building, and you see there's basically, mostly it'll be for storage. We'll look at that in a moment, but a vestibule to connect the two, the existing to the new. There's a drive proposed to the north, and this has been through all our city departments as well. There's a stormwater management pond that paperwork has started at calculations. And they have corresponded with our city engineering department. More on that in a moment. And there's, if you squint, I have to squint too, the bumps on the, how do I explain this? The rectangle of the new building, the semicircles represent proposed wall lighting. Bumps is not the best word for that. Okay, so we're filling out part of the site, putting a new fire lane in there / driveway. Let's look at a little bit more detail. Here's a proposed floor plan. Zoomed in on the new portion, as we can see that vestibule on the bottom is mostly storage with, I think those are restrooms. And then the rest of it is just manufacturing space. So the next thing is we'll look at north, south, east, and west proposed elevations. From the north, this is if you're looking from 1st Street, it follows the existing downward slope of the roof line, for stormwater purposes. And then on the south is from 3rd Street, similar, but just inverted since you're on the other side of the addition. Moving on, the east and west elevations. East is the portion that'll be showing out to the world. This is, you'll see a couple doors here. One's insulated steel overhead door. And then the west is the portion facing the existing facility. You see that connector vestibule area cut out there. So a couple points of staff analysis is, one, on September 18th, 2025, the Board of Zoning Appeals granted the required lot coverage variance for this project, moved up to 61% lot coverage. 2, all parking requirements will be met by the applicant's existing parking facilities. Staff inventoried the existing parking spaces available both on this parcel and all adjacent properties, including their larger parking lot to the south across 3rd Street. We counted 166 existing parking spaces, and that exceeds, therefore meets the minimum requirement of 150 that would be required after this addition. 3, the proposed wall pack lighting on the addition will comply with dark sky regulations. 4, staff recommends the owner invest in the beautification of the existing parking lots due to their proximity to the surrounding neighborhood. More ideas were provided in the staff report, and we did make contact outside of just sending the staff report to the applicant to express that. 5, the building addition would enable an acre employee in our community to grow in place versus relocating somewhere else, which is a massive plus to our community. And 6, all other code requirements would be met by this proposed addition. Therefore, staff recommends approval with the following 2 conditions. 1, all applicable permits are obtained through the building department, engineering department, and any other applicable agency prior to construction. And 2, the owner/applicant work with the city engineering department for all required stormwater approvals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panis. Is the applicant here? Would the applicant like to get up and speak?
Good evening. Steve Durbin, Telemon Construction, 5505 Milan Road. We're the design-build contractor for Luco. Mr. Guerra sends his apologies. He wasn't able to make it this evening, but I am available for any questions you may have.
Any questions from around the table?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Zula?
I had a question about the application. Regarding the staff mentioned beautification and parking, right?
Correct.
Now, so you visited the site,
Yes.
right? And you've assessed the current parking situation, right?
Correct.
Right. Yet you're making no conditions about parking. You're recommending for approval without any recommended conditions regarding parking. Is that right?
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zuloff. Any other questions, comments from around the table? I did have one question. I noticed in the literature, there was, the staff had said something about maybe some beautification of the parking lots. I wonder if Mr. Guerra would be receptive to that.
I believe he would. We actually, through our preliminary design, we just surveyed this site, both of those parking spaces, and in anticipation of additional employees, he is looking at possibly some improvements. Those have not been defined at this point.
Okay. Maybe staff can get with you and you guys can work something out. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about the gentleman's comment.
Mr. Zuloff, go ahead.
Yes. So you've discussed the parking, right? There were prior applications that that involved or resulted in discussion about the parking situation, and there were site plans, and there were let's just say there was discussion about opportunities to improve the parking situation, because yes, I know we don't have a lot of pedestrians there, but the cars are on the on the sidewalk, right? So, and I'm not sure why I'm bringing it up other than, you know, I had to ask about the parking. And if we're thinking about it again, maybe it's a good chance to bring it up, because I think it would, you know, it would improve the look and feel of the whole area, and perhaps it's not possible. Maybe there is no other room for parking elsewhere on the site. Maybe there is no solution. But if there is, maybe it's a good time to, since we're thinking about it, it would be nice to give it some thought.
Thank you, Mr. Zuloff. Mr. Miller, did you have a comment?
Well, it is so poorly formed. I am wrestling with a vague recollection that we've talked about parking in this, for this property before, and if you look at the overlay, or the site plan that shows the property boundary to, just on the other side of Lane Street, there is some parking that I think Luco controls and use that. It seems like parking on that side, on the Lane Street side, is something that we did talk about. It's a number of years ago now, but it seems like maybe on the east side of Lane Street at the time we were talking wasn't paved yet then or something, or they were talking about paving on the west side and they left that gravel to manipulate trucks in and out or something like that. I'm wondering if anybody else has a recollection about having been down this parking question before on, related to this business.
I was alluding to my recollection.
I thought as much, but I don't remember how it was resolved. It seemed that there was specific parking provisions agreed upon at that time.
Yeah, I think what they said was that there was part of the parking lot had gravels. Part of it was paved and part of it had a lot of gravel in it, and that's what the question about the condition of that parking space right there was.
I would have to consult the minutes to know exactly what was said, but I do recall that an apron for turning trucks was added there, and that there was no condition placed, and that I do know that there were some ex parte discussions with the applicant. So it is what it is right now, and, all we can do is keep things moving ahead.
Any other comments or questions from around the table? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval subject to the staff conditions.
It's been
Second.
moved by Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Zuloff. Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Rambo, will you call the roll?
Jim Jackson.
Yes.
Steve Pajali.
Yes.
Mike Zuloff.
Yes.
Connor Whalen.
Yes.
David Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. I would just add that, we hear so much about there's never any creation of manufacturing or industrial or light industrial jobs, and here's an opportunity to do that. So we appreciate Mr. Guerra looking forward with his property. Thank you. Okay, our next item under new business, approval of the final plat for a major subdivision. That would be Battery Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have the application for approval of the final plat for the major subdivision submitted following the approval, the final development plan for the PUD last month. This is, the final PUD included the preliminary plat, so that approval met the preliminary plat approval requirements of the code, and there's that time frame given for the final plat. So this is that last step for their process. You can see the outlined defined land area for the subdivision. It was rezoned to planned unit development. And then the aerial here, you can see the defined boundary of the Battery Park PUD, at least the land portion, not the entire marina portion, obviously. Those existing conditions photos we're all familiar with. And the preliminary plat that was approved at the October meeting that was marked draft, it really shows the public right-of-ways that define the new parcels where the buildings are going to go in the PUD. The final plat is a little bit more of a technical document that shows the exact outlines of not only the public right-of-way, but each of those what they're calling sublot areas that will become new parcels. So again, this completely follows the site plan that was approved in the PUD, the right-of-way areas that were approved last month in the civil engineering drawings. Those civil engineering drawings have now been stamped by our city engineer. So all of the final plat documents required for the planning commission review have been submitted. Additionally, there will be the construction agreement goes to city commission after this. drafted that, is in circulation now with our law department. So all of the preliminary documents that will be required for city commission have been submitted. It will create the 11 sublots on that final plat for each of those building footprint areas. So like I mentioned, the final plat and its accompanying documentation follows the approved preliminary plat. It meets all the requirements of the major subdivision code as proposed, and therefore staff recommends approval of the final plat for the major subdivision with the following conditions: that all applicable permits are obtained through the various departments and other applicable agencies, and the construction agreement is executed, including city commission approval to sign prior to the commencement of any construction of those civil engineering drawings.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. Any comments from the applicant? Do you represent Maroos?
Yes. Austin Cobby with Maroos Development Group. Good evening. Thank you for having us. So yeah, Aaron summarized everything pretty nicely. Essentially just going for final plat approval. It was approved conditionally last month during the PUD final approval. And what we're just looking to do is get final approval for each of the sublots required for the buildings that will be inevitably constructed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Zuloff.
Over the years, as we've experienced some of these waterfront projects, from time to time what has come up is the question of conservation easements for the public access segments of these projects. And so there were times when it was, I thought we were taking it pretty seriously and getting close, and then of course, then you have an election and it all fizzles, or staff changes and it fizzles. But I wonder if it's time again to take a look at, for the open spaces, public areas, parks, and that sort of thing, to explore the possibility of conservation easements, either to, say, Western Reserve Land Conservancy or the Park District, or those would be the two entities that come to mind to ensure the perpetuity of these open spaces. It was discussed whether that was legal, whether it was practical, whether you'd get anywhere with it. The conclusion at the time was it was legal, but that might have changed, I don't know. Just mentioning it doesn't need anybody's answer. I just thought I'd bring it up because we have an entirely new staff now.
Thank you, Mr. Zuloff. Any other questions or comments from around the table? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If not, is there a motion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman, subject to the recommended conditions.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Rambo, will you call the roll?
Steve Pajali,
Yes.
David Miller,
Yes.
Jim Jackson,
Yes.
Mike Zuloff,
Yes.
Connor Whalen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Is there any other business for the good of the order?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Zuloff.
You know what, I'll save it for the next meeting.
Okay. Just under other business, I want to note that the proposed text amendment will be coming before the City Commission for a public hearing on December 8th. And if you gentlemen want to come and, if anybody wants to come and make the commission aware of your thoughts, we'd appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I do have something.
Yes.
I do have something.
Yes, Mr. Zuloff.
And you reminded me of,
Can we keep it brief?
no, I'm going to go on and on ad nauseum. Okay, so you made me aware, reminded me of what's afoot at the State House about restricting localities' power to limit transient rental. Apparently, it's being at least someone, so real estate interests and/or investment interests are attempting to create the perception that there's broad support for this. Well, there might be in certain communities, but I think there's probably, like we were, like we learned existentially that when we had a proposal for a district and we were told there was much support, and then we found out that no, there was far more support against it, I think you'd find that there would be a lot of opposition from residents, from municipalities that want to control their own destiny, and perhaps from other interests like hotels and motels that, you know, are faced with competing with this stuff. So I think we have to be skeptical. I also am worried about what exactly this is going to do, and I have a question whether our home rule would permit us to override such things, or does that depend on the nature of said legislation? And I wondered if our law director would have an opinion on that.
I have an opinion. That's certainly true. But home rule is notorious for being unpredictable in the Ohio Supreme Court. It is one of the most inconsistent things that they do. There's an Ohio legislative brief that they give to new legislators talking about home rule, and one of the conclusions is it's very difficult to predict how they will rule. But this does seem like a classic local control issue. Zoning is typically local control. So using simplistic home rule analysis, it's not a police power. We're talking about local control, and therefore the city should have home rule on zoning. But our latest information, from this is something that the Ohio Municipal League is very much opposed to. It's something that the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association, of which I'm a member, is talked about a lot. And our understanding is that the bill that would take home rule away from communities is not going to be passed this year, which means it has to start all over again next year. There is another bill which does talk about transient rental and has actually some good provisions in it that talks about taxing them the same as hotels are taxed so that they're on a more equal footing. But it also retains local control over zoning.
Good to hear. Thank you.
I happened to attend, there was a public hearing over in Ottawa County. Teresa Gavardone sponsored that, and they brought in the representative from Delaware County, Airbnb, and some others. And there were probably 100 people there, and there may have been 3 people that spoke in favor of deregulation. But my understanding was in Columbus, it's a different story, that a lot of the realtors and other interests are coming out and speaking in favor of doing this. So that's kind of where the push is.
Yeah, I think it passed the House. It's in a committee in the Senate, but there's been no movement in that committee.
Okay. If there is no other comments, we will stand.
Safe and happy Thanksgiving to you.
I have one
Ms.
comment,
Blair.
Mr. Chairman. So we do not have any applications for our December meeting, which means we will not have any need for a December meeting, planning commission meeting. So enjoy the time with your families and the holiday, which also means this is our last meeting with Chairman Commissioner Steve Pajali.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to thank you for your time as chairman of the planning commission and for being a city commissioner.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed this commission a lot. Look forward to all our meetings. And I hope I wasn't too hard on you, but
Oh, you have.
You guys are a
You
good
have.
group,
You have.
and I
You
think,
have.
I think they will.
I think you picked on me. I feel singled
I
out.
haven't picked on
The
you,
new
no.
person's gonna-
I think that the new commission will bring somebody to the table
Yeah,
that
yeah.
will do a fine job.
107.
So happy holidays to everybody.
Happy holidays to everybody then.
A motion to adjourn?
That's nice. So Tino's place?
Here, here.
No,
Let's do it.
Stand adjourned.
Do we have a second?
At the prime.
Adjournment needs a second.
Need a second.
Let's go home.